Hi, thanks for tuning in to 7 things you can do to create a positive learning environment. Here's a list of the things we're going to discuss in the next 9 to 10 minutes. I'm Tom Cairns, Associate Professor of Management at the Graduate School of Business at Azusa Pacific University, and I'll be your host for this discussion. If you'd like to follow along, you can print this outline. Just hit the pause button, print, and then participate. Before we get started, I thought it appropriate we warm up our minds. What do Santa's elves learn in school? The alphabet. What do Santa's elves drive? Mini Coopers. What breakfast cereal does Frosty the Snowman eat? Snowflakes. Which reindeer likes to clean? On Comet. What do you call a bankrupt Santa? St. Nicholas. Enough of the tomfoolery, pun intended. First aspect of creating a positive learning environment is stepping out of the boat. We find inspiration for this in the story of Jesus walking on the water found in Matthew chapter 14. Here's a little passage from there. There are lots of aspects and lessons to learn. I'm going to draw 3 things. 1, get out of our comfort zone. Peter's the only one to step out of the boat. Be proactive. Although we're reacting to many things, we need to be proactive in our reaction. Change comes about pushing and pulling us. Let's step into it. Another aspect, and the last aspect I want to focus on, is the goal. And Peter lost sight of that goal and began to sink. Let's focus on the future and not the past. To help us step out of that boat and continue that walk, we can learn something from expectancy theory. If what I want is important enough to me, I'm going to pursue it and persist in it. So setting goals, imagine goals you think you cannot achieve and goals that cannot be achieved alone. These are important because they direct our attention, they influence our intentions, they help us mobilize our efforts, increase our persistence and commitment, and affects our strategies to accomplishing our tasks. So remember that God can do abundantly more than you and I can ask or think. Let's step out of the boat. Now that we've stepped out of the boat, or at least are thinking about it, now what? How about a little something for everyone? Represented here are 4 pictures of the various learning styles that are present in your classroom. They also represent your own learning style. Each one of us has a primary learning style, or 1 or 2 that we tend to gravitate toward. However, all 4 are present in each one of us. The first one is visual. Those are individuals that like to learn by seeing. Anything that can represent words, whether that be a chart, a graph, a map, a diagram, table, or a symbol. Pictured here is a map of the world, and circled on the right hand side are India and China and other countries in that area of the world. This represents 2/3 of the world's population within that circle. A visual learner, that's how they would recall and remember that. Then we have oral learners, those who like to listen to your lectures actually, but they also like to engage in discussion. Then there are those that, believe it or not, like those essays and those research papers, any opportunity to write in any kind of form. And then there is the kinesic learner who likes to practice and apply what they've learned either in a simulation or a real world experience. So what does this mean? Well, first of all, I need to be conscious of my own primary learning style, because that's going to influence perhaps how I structure my classes. I need to be aware of that. Also, do you think the primary learning styles of all your millennials, are they all created equal? How can you best maximize the student learning experience? So I like to think of my classroom and how I put my classes together as a buffet restaurant. I want to have a little something for everyone and allow them to eat as much as they can. Well, if it ain't broke, break it. I know our classroom structure and curriculum is working well, and we don't want to mess with it, but perhaps we should think about it. One way to have that happen is to take advantage of mistakes. I don't know about you, but I've made plenty of those in my classroom, and some of those have actually worked. A Toll House cookie was created when Ruth Wakefield was baking cookies, making chocolate cookies, and ran out of baker's chocolate. And then she broke up some sweetened chocolate, threw it in the cookie dough, fully expecting it to melt. It didn't though, and thus we got even a better product. We could also take the ideas that we have and see how we can improve upon them. And then there's the not invented here syndrome. Starbucks came about because Howard Schultz liked the experience in Italy where every 20-30 feet was a cafe, a coffee shop where you could sit and enjoy coffee and enjoy the atmosphere. He brought that back to the US and westernized that idea. So 3 things we could do to improve upon our existing product. The 4th thing we can do to have a positive learning experience for our students is to appeal to the kid inside each one. Here I have represented various things that I've used in my classroom. Games, Imagine If, putting Play-Doh together to have them create a product and pitch it in 15 words or less and create that product in 15 minutes. Our Iceberg is Melting, a fable written by John Cotter, a professor out of the Harvard Business School. There you see Willie from Duck Dynasty. I have a case study written about that. My all-time favorite, Rango. Puzzles, sending my students on wild goose chases using silly string in the classroom. That one I learned the hard way, is that there's a lot of cleanup involved as well. So have some fun. Bring some childlike activities into your class that will also be teaching opportunities. And I think you'll notice that all of these aspects touch all 4 learning styles. Another key element to creating a positive learning environment for our students is to make sure that we engage not only their mind but also their heart and soul. And how can we do that in a Socratic way? By being relevant, by asking questions that require critical thinking, giving students an opportunity to reflect, and an opportunity to engage in a dialogue and discussion of difficult material. We teach millennials. Is it important that we ourselves behave like millennials? How millennial are you? Well, you could take a quiz. Pew Research Center has one. I have the link down there for you. It may help you as you determine what's the best way to engage with your students. I also have on the left-hand side that there's a percentage of employees that are actively engaged in the workplace. It's only about 1/3. And you have 2/3 that are either somewhat disengaged and some that are very disengaged. And I have this there to give us an example of, is this our students? Is this a dichotomy of our students? How engaged are they? It's important how we remain relevant and asking questions and giving them time to reflect and discuss. Certainly one of the keys to creating a positive learning environment is faith integration. And I take this aspect that there's a variety of ways to practice faith integration in the classroom. Here are 8 ways that various faith traditions view serving God in the workplace. This was identified by Timothy Keller. What I like about it is he doesn't actually say which faith tradition. So I survey my students at the beginning of class, asking them what one best way would they view as representative of them serving God in the workplace. Once they identify that, then I try to use the course activities to emphasize those particular ways that they could serve God, letting them know that that's also the way that they filter and process the material and information that they receive from the discipline. So it's the interaction of faith and work. And here's a result of those surveys that I've conducted with 135 students over the past couple years, and you can see it also represents a variety of different learning styles as well. So I try to incorporate a little something for everyone. And lastly, after you've done all of those things, you give God an opportunity to act. You've given him something that he can actually work with. I like to daily make mention of my students in prayer. I take an index card, write their names on it. By the end of the class, I have them memorized. I let my students know that I'm praying that God would do something, a breakthrough in their lives, whether they need it personally, professionally, spiritually, or all of the above. So remember, set some goals you know you cannot achieve. Certainly not alone. This concludes our brief discussion of 7 things you can do to create a positive learning environment for your students. We're just getting started. The question for you is, what do you think? If you'd like to continue this conversation with me, my contact information is there on the left-hand side of the screen. Otherwise, in the words of Forrest Gump, that's all I have to say about that.